Thank you for joining us. My name's Annette Doherty. I'm the Marketing Director for Elcom, and in a moment I will introduce your presenter. But first, just a few quick ways to enjoy this webinar. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the GoToWebinar panel on the side of your screen. At the end of the webinar, we will have time for a Q&A session. Please also join in the conversation and follow us on Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn. We will be treating ourselves during this webinar. Now to introduce your speaker. As Product Director at Elcom, Tim is driven by the convergence of technology innovation with the strategic objectives of industry, combining the fast-changing trends in the marketplace with the challenges of a high-caliber client base forms the basis of the Elcom CMS roadmap. Tim is responsible for the direction, development and growth of the Elcom CMS platform, which drives the intranet and websites of key brands around the world. Over to you, Tim.
Thanks a lot, Annette. So during our webinar today, we will cover these 6 key agenda points. First, we'll take some time to understand your customer experience through a customer journey map. Then we'll look at the shift away from analysing simple touch points and instead towards interactions. And then spend some time on the role of websites within customer experience. And then look at some important considerations when it comes to delivering a connected customer experience. Customer experience is not about isolated moments such as that telephone conversation with a sales rep or a trip to the shop. Instead, customer experience is what actually defines your brand. It's the sum of each moment where a customer interacts with your brand. And these interactions usually unfold over time across different channels and through different mediums. Customer experience can be measured in the overall satisfaction that a customer has with your brand and the likelihood of that customer continuing to do business and also recommending your brand. So where do you start when looking at your customer experience? It's a good place to start with building out a customer journey map. A customer journey map helps identify where your brand moves in and out of a customer's journey, highlighting their needs at each point and the key interactions where your brand can deliver on those needs. So let's take a moment to go through each stage in a customer journey map and to highlight what's involved with each one. So the first stage is that of discovery. And this is really involved with identifying the motivators for customers which actually start them on their journey as being a customer. And an integral part of this is establishing how they discover and interact with your brand as part of that process. So was it through your advertising, your social media channels, or visiting your website? And if you take that one step further, it's good to identify which aspects of your business they would probably encounter. Is it your sales team or your marketing department? Next, customers may decide to engage. But how can they engage with you? Is it an option of walking into your shop, visiting your website on their phone, contacting you on social media? And as part of this stage, they may be looking for all different kinds of things from you, from information, assistance, or a service from your brand. For instance, they may be looking for recommendations for you to make, technical information or brand endorsements. And again, which aspects of your organisation will they be engaging with? Could it be your sales team or even your product specialists? The next step in the customer journey is conversion. And this is really taking someone from being a prospect and converting them into a customer who is going to be using a product or service. So look to identify how you onboard them. Is this done normally over the phone, online, or is it only in person? Often an overlooked but critical aspect of the conversion process is what happens when something goes wrong. What is the usual customer experience then? Is it quickly rectified, or is the result a frustrating experience? And lastly, which aspects of your organisation will they be engaging with at this stage? A sales rep or their account manager? The customer journey then moves into a supportive stage. And what this looks like may vary from brand to brand. It could be technical support or billing inquiries. And again, will they be interacting with your support team or directly with their account manager? Something else to consider here is ways to reward them. They're your customers now. So perhaps look for ways that they maybe want to be rewarded as part of their journey at this stage in the process. So hopefully this outlines how to define your typical customer experience through journey maps. Throughout these 4 stages, the overarching challenge, though, evolves around how can your customer journey be delivered as one experience instead of disconnected stages to enable the best possible overall result. So we now may launch into our first poll. You can see it up there on the screen. The question is, how do you rate customer experience across your organisation? The options there are awesome, pretty good, okay but room for improvement, inconsistent, or not good. We might just take a moment here to give you an opportunity to cast your votes across those 5 different options there. So please just click the option that you'd like on your screen. We'll just give a little bit more time to allow people to put their options in there. Okay, that's great. Can see some options coming in. Just give a little bit more time here. Okay. So we can see here, as I've brought it up here on the screen for you, that okay but room for improvement and consistent were voted as probably the most highest priority there, and that's quite interesting. That's fairly consistent with what we see in terms of talking with our customers around customer experience. It's an interesting thing to analyse because it covers so much of your organisation. It's not just one component like your website or your bricks and mortar store. Your customer experience actually encompasses every single facet of your business. So that's a fairly common result, I think. Before I continue, please keep the questions coming. You can type them into your screen there and I'll respond to them at the end as we go along. So all too often, customer experience is treated as a set of disconnected steps. However, the reality for your customers is that it's one ongoing and connected journey. So in order to view customer experience in this way, we need to move away from isolated touch points and into connected interactions. So usually customer experience is treated as isolated steps of customer touch points, and it can often play out something like this. The web team uses Google Analytics to understand clicks and visits, and the marketing team uses automation tools to understand opens and subscribers. The sales team would typically use a CRM to track calls and sales, and the support team use a ticketing solution to track support requests and feedback. However, each time I walk into your store or pick up the phone or visit your website, regardless of how I'm interacting with your brand, each of those interactions come bundled with a set of things. For instance, my history with your brand, any information that I've already disclosed, my current perception of your brand, and my goals and larger objectives. So when moving to an interaction-based view of customer experience, it means that the customer's universal story so far needs to be packaged up and made available to every interaction, so that each time I interact, it feels like it's a part of an ongoing experience, and it moves me closer towards the next interaction that I have with your brand. Often, a good user experience then is considered to be all you need in order to deliver a good customer experience. However, there's much more to this. So let's take a moment to look at how user experience is really just a part of a broader customer experience strategy. User experience deals with what's involved when people are interacting with your products and services while trying to perform specific tasks, access information, or just complete their objectives. So this could be in the context of screens within your website, a mobile app, or even the functions that they try and do within your physical store. A good user experience usually can be measured in the speed and ease to complete tasks and the ability to find information quickly and easily. Customer experience, however, encompasses all of these interactions a person has with your brand, and it can be measured through more holistic things like overall brand experience, the likelihood of continued use, and the likelihood of somebody recommending your brand to others. This means that one bad user experience regardless of where it is through the process, can impact the overall customer experience. So what makes a great user experience? Well, here are a couple of broad tips. Firstly, it's good to start understanding your different audiences. Different types of people demand different user experiences. So identify your different audiences by finding similarities and work towards delivering user experiences that work for them. This could lead to displaying more helpful information up front or simplifying your navigation. Next, try and be more task-orientated. So start with ranking all the features and content on your website by what's most important and what's frequently accessed by people. Then make sure that they can find this information on your site very easily using your normal navigation and also your site search. Then constantly survey and interview. On average, you're only going to hear back from about 4% of your dissatisfied customers. The rest of the people will just go away quietly. So consistently try and capture the attention of those other 96% and find out why your user experience isn't working for them. You might actually find that this will highlight processes that may need tweaking or simplifying and interfaces that may need reworking. You might have the best advertising, brand recognition, sales team and customer service reps, but if your website is creating barriers for your customers, then your overall customer experience may suffer. Being a CMS company, we are really passionate about delivering online platforms. So I'd like to take a bit of time now to focus on the role that websites play within your brand's overall customer experience. So let's go through some technical considerations such as multi-channel and multi-device, big data, and content personalization. In an era when companies see online support as a way to shield themselves from costly interactions with their customers, it's time to consider an entirely different approach, building human-centric customer service through great people and clever technology. So let's get to know your customers, humanize them, and humanize yourself. It's worth it. This quote highlights that online platforms need to be considered as part of your complete customer service strategy and not just an isolated destination. But there's a big challenge here, right? How do we design websites from a human-centric perspective? Let's explore a few important technical considerations that can help us move from isolated visits and clicks and bounce rates to connected interactions-based customer experience. So before we do, we might just take a moment just to run another quick poll here. The question is up there on the screen: how human-centric is your customer experience planning? The options there that you can select are always, most of the time, half the time, hardly ever, or never. So we might just take a little bit of time here just to let you cast your votes there. Okay, just a little bit more time if you just want to cast your votes. That's great, can see the votes coming in. Let's have a look at the results there. Okay, so half the time at 44% is the clear favourite there. With most of the time and hardly ever, looks like a pretty good bell curve there actually in terms of those votes. Quite interesting there that most of the time and always are dropping off a bit. Human-centric design and planning with websites is a challenge. So yeah, that looks fairly consistent, you know, with the kind of questions that we have with our clients. Okay. So as I mentioned before the poll, we might jump into 3 technical considerations now. And the first consideration is the number of different channels and devices that your customers have to interact with your brand these days. So this could include your website, sure, but also emails that you send, your social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, but even offline channels such as your call centers and your bricks and mortar premises are all available channels. So the challenge is how to ensure that each interaction, regardless of the channel or the device that it takes place on, follows on from the last, instead of starting from the beginning each and every time. So how can you connect your customer's experience across different channels and devices? First, ensure that your websites are mobile ready. If your customers want to visit your brand on their mobile device, ensure that you're ready for them, and that your mobile experience is consistent with your tablet and desktop experience. So for this reason, I'd recommend looking into mobile responsive techniques. The approach to building responsive websites means that you build the smarts into each web page so that it knows how to automatically reformat itself based on the amount of screen real estate it has to use. So on a small mobile phone screen, for instance, you may only choose to show a summary menu and hide certain content, but on a large desktop, the same web page knows how to display the full menu and that extra column of content. This will enable you to only have to build web pages once, knowing that they will know how to present themselves onto different device sizes. Then look for ways to recognize customers each time they interact with you, visiting your website from different channels and also different devices. So the next consideration is the concept of big data. And this is really just a name that's given to the growing level of data that's being automatically generated and stored from all those digital platforms and devices out there. So take a website as an example. Every scroll, click, swipe, and selection that your customers are making on your websites and your web pages is generating a lot of data. Even barcode scans, check-ins, phone calls, mobile app usage, and social media activity are all generating data that can be harnessed. This is the concept of big data. Bringing together all that data from your website, phone systems, CRM, marketing tools opens up an opportunity, as this data can be used to reveal an understanding of a customer, their interests, goals, and even their frustrations. You can then start to use this to provide a bit of a 360-degree view of a customer's journey with your brand. So how can all that data be unlocked? Well, you're probably already sitting on top of a whole lot of big data already, stored in platforms such as Google Analytics or marketing tools such as Marketo or email campaign tools such as Campaign Monitor. So first, look for ways to export and group that data out of those systems based on individual customers. Then look for data that represents a customer action, interest, or intent. And find ways to make that customer information available to each of the interactions that you have with your customers. Another idea is to look into analytical platforms that can plug into your website, which really focus on tracking interactions and behaviors. These will help convert all of that data that you send them into meaningful and accessible customer information. Two recommended platforms I can make are Mixpanel and Kissmetrics. Okay, the last consideration is around how to personalize each interaction. Every time a customer interacts with your brand, they are supplying information on themselves. Sometimes it's explicit, such as providing their name, but other times it's implicit, such as they may visit a web page on a particular topic. But this creates an opportunity to continuously adapt and personalize a user's experience based on this information. This is done by delivering the right messaging and content to the right person at the right time based on your understanding of their customer journey. So how can you personalize your content and messaging? Well, start by doing a content audit. Identify all the important points on your website where targeted messaging or content may deliver a personalized experience to a specific audience. Then start by building up a library of variations of your key content and your key messages for your different identified audiences. And if you can couple this with the big data that you have on your customers, regardless of where it's from, it can help drive what messaging or content from that library you choose to show to which audience on your web pages and when. I hope you found the information provided interesting and useful, but before I get into the Q&A and address some of those questions that have been coming in, I did want to give a quick overview of Elcom and Elcom CMS. Elcom is a globally recognized web CMS with over 1 million end users and a global web team. We work with mid to enterprise organizations to achieve their corporate objectives by delivering powerfully simple web solutions and customer experiences. Elcom CMS powers intranets, websites, portals, mobile, social, learning sites, and it has over 90 base features out of the box. So Elcom CMS makes it easy for you to quickly and cost-efficiently deploy solutions to support collaboration across your entire organization. Even if you're at the early stage of considering CMS options, you're looking at ways to improve customer experience or bring together these different interactions and touch points, we're happy to come and meet with you and even help scope your needs and develop a functional plan and budget. Obligation free, of course. So now I might hand it back to Annette for the Q&A.
Thanks, Tim. Just quickly before the questions, just want to let everybody know that we will send a follow-up email with links to today's presentation and other resources we think you might find interesting. Also, just to let you know, the resources section on our website has a lot of knowledge-based content. So now, let's have a look at the questions. So we've had a few come in there. So I think I might pick this one first. So the first question, Tim, do you have any tips for working with big data, try that again. Do you have any tips for working with that big data from the different platforms you mentioned?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, look for ways to identify your customers within each platform. So usually an email address is the common one. Usually that's a good way of identifying users regardless of where the data might actually come from. And then find out how to export data from those platforms into something where you can work on that data. We've done here before, we've leveraged Google Spreadsheets as an example, because with a bit of work you can actually get it to suck in data from external sources. And then you can even get Google Spreadsheets to then export that data so that you can make it accessible to other systems like your website or your CRM. So yeah, the first thing is to try and get that information out and into somewhere centralized. And something as simple as Google Spreadsheets is a good place to start.
Right. We've got another question here, which is a direct question about the Elcom CMS. Does the Elcom CMS have surveys for customer experience that we can activate?
Yeah, absolutely. So out of the box, we've got a few different modules. So modules are simply just elements that you can drop onto a web page as you're designing it. So we have a poll module, which is a good way of just asking simple questions like we've done today as part of this webinar. We have a survey module as well, which enables you to build up a more complicated kind of questions and access responses from there, and a forms module as well. So if you're just looking to capture the same kind of responses each time, you can do that as well. Yeah, so there's a few different ways that you can certainly look at asking those questions, tapping into customer experience, finding out what people think, through tools built into Elcom CMS.
We've got time for a couple more questions. So the next one here is, what does human-centric planning mean for a website?
This really evolves around understanding what people want to achieve on your website and trying to design it to help them achieve those goals. So as humans, we're really looking at trying to do something. We have a goal in mind typically when we try and do most things. So instead of just creating content and sticking it up on your website, and hoping that people are going to find it, human-centric planning is more around working towards helping them find the content at the right time, so notifying them at the points in their customer journey when you think they're going to need it. So in other words, design your website to try and assist them to discover content and complete their tasks, instead of just expecting your customers to figure out where your content is and how to achieve the goals and objectives that they have when they arrive on your website.
Great. Another question here, how can I track customers over social media?
Yeah, that's one of those million-dollar questions. Okay, so a tip is to look to always create a landing page for each piece of content that you are planning on sharing on social media, or at least include something in that URL that you're going to share on social media, so that when someone clicks on that content, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook, you know which social media channel that they came from. And coupled with simple detection techniques, you can usually detect what kind of device they're using, and also couple that with the content that they're viewing, they're trying to view in the first place. That'll tell you quite a lot about the customer. From there, you can then use different kind of tracking techniques. For instance, Google Analytics has good ways of being able to track repeat customers that come back time and time again. So the idea is to make sure that whenever you're sharing something on social media, you've got a call to action, i.e. back to your website, and that when they do come to your website, you are continuously tracking them, and that way you can start to understand what social media channels that they're using and what kind of content that they're interested in.
Okay, great. Another question. Does Elcom CMS support any particular responsive framework?
Yeah, so the last few releases of Elcom CMS have supported built-in responsiveness into our front-end facing modules and screens. So that comes built in with the product. And in 9.5, which was a couple of releases ago, we added support for the Bootstrap framework, which is one of those responsive frameworks, into all of our administrative screens. In essence, so that you can manage entire websites and portals from mobile devices. And actually, in our upcoming release, version 10, we are adding in support for the Bootstrap framework into our front-facing modules and screens as well.
Fantastic. Okay, look, I think we might leave it there. If we haven't got to your questions, we'll respond to them through direct email. So I'd just like to say thanks, Tim, and thank you, everyone, for your time today.